A dick gets the gavel, the Groom a Boomer campaign, and equality in war propaganda. This is the Propaganda Report's Drive Time News Blast. I am Brad Binkley. Top story, the House of Representatives finally has a new speaker. Republican House Representative Mike Johnson of Louisiana has been handed the gavel. And yes, you heard that correctly. The House of Assholes has chosen a Johnson as its leader. And everyone was super excited about it and eager to get back to work, starting with the newly elevated Dick in charge, who during his first speech to the House and to the American people said this. He said, "We're going to dispense with all of the usual ceremonies and celebrations that traditionally follow a new speakership because we have no time for either one. The American people's business is too urgent in this moment. The hour is late. The crisis is great," Johnson asserted. Not inserted, not Johnson inserted. Johnson asserted. I don't want to go down any wrong paths here. Johnson wasn't the only House member horny for some congressional action, as many of his fellow Republicans in the House made the rounds in the media, excitedly assuring the American people that after 3 long weeks with no leadership and no action, that it's now time for the House to get back to work for the American people. That was a statement that you heard all of them say over and over again. Time to get back to work for the American people. And of course, by American people, they mean Israel. Time to get back to work for Israel, because the first action they urgently took after electing their new speaker wasn't even about America domestically. It was a resolution they passed showing the House unified support for Israel. So that's what it looks like when the House of Representatives is working for the American people. It looks like they're working for Israel or Ukraine or any other foreign war that they're dying to fund, which they make a higher priority than actually serving the domestic needs of the American people who elected them. It's what they've always done. The trick after that is they simply have to then propagandize the American people into believing that putting the funding of foreign wars above the needs of the American people is actually the only way to serve the needs of the American people. It's like telling your wife that the only way you can satisfy her desires is by banging the lady down the street. You have to bang the lady down the street for democracy. If you don't bang her, you're gonna be putting us all at risk. Putin is gonna invade our house, invade our bedroom, and his Russian army is gonna gang rape you. That's why I have to bang the woman down the street for democracy worldwide. That is what the reasoning is. It's just backward use of propaganda to try and they consistently do the same thing. We fund foreign wars and we're unified on that. Internationally, domestically, we divide and conquer, and we brainwash the American people into thinking our international war agenda is their own personal private agenda. So I guess after 3 weeks with no speaker and none of our money being sent over to Ukraine or Israel, we are finally back to business as usual in the House with this weird new speaker that nobody knows anything about. So that's an interesting thing, Stella. You probably haven't heard much about the new speaker over there, but he's a guy that nobody really heard of, and he has a very generic name. And he hasn't been around that long, which is perfect for them because they can all fight to mold and shape his public perception in the public mind. And they can newly compromise him. So they probably have all these exciting ways they're trying to get this guy, if he hasn't already, to cheat on his wife or spend a bunch of money on gambling. Just all the fun ways the CIA likes to try and get their control over everybody else. And speaking of assholes in the House, did you hear the story over there about the guy in the House of Representatives who pulled the fire alarm and claimed that it was an accident and that he thought it was going to open the door? that was. Did you hear about that story?
Was he happen to be a dark-skinned gentleman?
He is. He's a black guy, and
Okay.
I heard today that he is the newest member of what they call the squad over here, which is 4 progressive chicks. And I'm like, what? They're bringing a dude in the squad? That's, unless he's gay, they don't need to be doing that, I think. And I don't think he's gay. But the interesting thing about that guy is that he was a principal of I think a middle school or a high school for 10 years, where no doubt there were countless number of times that students pulled the fire alarm and then gave him a bullshit excuse about it. And here he is, not knowing how fire alarms work. I guess he'd never had to open a door there, but I didn't know this before, but apparently it's on video because they did an investigation into it. He pulls the fire alarm and then he sprints away, passing multiple Capitol police officers in the process. And he's saying it was an accident. So I guess every time this guy thinks he's using a weird lever to open a door, he immediately sprints in the opposite direction. I mean, yeah, he did this, and then his people put out talking points that called Republicans that said that he did it on purpose to stop a vote Nazis. Like, they literally called people who said that he did it on purpose Nazis afterwards. It was a great story. I want you to respond, and then there's a little bit of an update to it.
Okay, first of all, are we okay on Rockfin? Because it's not. I'm not seeing
shit.
It. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
anyway, while you
yeah.
mop up that mess,
the one time I don't wait for that little red light, I missed the little red light. Thank you, Stella.
You missed that little red light.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of little red lights, look, if this guy, I'd love to see the inside of this guy's house. He must have a really funky decorated house. I'd love to see all his doors. They must.
It's all like
fire
secret,
alarm
like
levers.
library doors from 1930s movies and shit. With the way he opens with giant levers.
Me being me and my ultra conspiratorial mode, I would probably link that to some kind of, apart from just a distraction, always multifaceted, some kind of a symbol, a ritual, symbolic of telling somebody something.
I think it tells his constituents that if you continue to vote for me after this, then you are truly stupid and I can get away with anything. I mean, we're to the point where people are pulling fire alarms, sprinting in the other direction, going, anybody who thinks that I did that on purpose and didn't think it was a door handle is a Nazi. I mean, this is a ridiculous stage in reality that we've reached.
It sort of reminds, it's kind of in the same ballpark as the John Fetterman clothing thing, I mean, to me, it's just more frayed edges that they're creating, so it looks so fragile and weak that people just lose their confidence in the structure. So
it's crazy. Or Dianne Feinstein, who was in power in the Senate until the day she died, even though she didn't have power of attorney over her own life, because
I think she was still in power while she was dead.
She might still be the senator, I think. Yeah. For all we know. I don't know.
Maybe.
I would like to see John Fetterman give an address to Congress with a ball gag in his mouth and assless chaps. I think they need to double, triple down on the wardrobe, because you're right. It has gotten absurd. But this dude, what was his name again? Bowman. Bowman is that guy's name, the new squad member. He got actually charged and prosecuted, and they charged him, which is great. Finally, even though it's one misdemeanor he got charged with, but it's better than nothing. They charged him with willfully and knowingly pulling a false fire alarm in violation of the DC code, and he was ordered to appear for arraignment today, and he's going to have to pay a $1,000 fine and issue a formal apology to the Capitol Police if he wants to have the charges dropped. So I'm looking forward to that formal apology that he gives him. Maybe he'll say, screw you, you're all Nazis for doing this to me, you racist. I would expect something like that.
I just can't get over the disappointment at the fact that they just didn't give the job of speaker to a drag queen. I mean, why not? Where's all the people that should be jumping up and down about that?
Maybe this guy will come to surprise us, and he'll
That is true. We don't know what he's got in his closet.
Yeah, I wanted one of those sex bots on Twitter to be the speaker, because I kept tweeting at all these House members who were at that alien hearing. I kept saying, "Where are the biologics, Nancy Mace? You said you were going to the skiff to see the biologics from the dead non-human intelligence pilots from these UFO crafts. Nobody showed me the biologics," and none of them responded. But every single time I said biologics, I got one of those cute little Asian sex bots to like it every single time. So if they're interested in the same thing I am, I say Asian sex bot as Speaker of the House. So let me ask you this, Stella. Do you guys have similar woke ridiculousness that goes on in y'all's culture over there?
It's not quite so prominent. They've tried, but this is Australia, so good luck with that. In the uni scene and everything, I would imagine it's much more prominent. Gosh, there's some heavy weather outside. I hope that's not creating a
No,
background
I didn't hear.
noise.
I mean,
Okay.
my hair just stood up a little bit, so it's the lightning.
Yeah, it's coming
Really in
through.
touch. Yeah.
Yeah, the uni scene and everything, I'd imagine that would be fairly wokey and, blue haired and all that sort of thing, because a lot of them are, it's very mixed cultured as well. So, they're just going to go along with anything because they've probably got a whole bunch of carrots but given to them when they came in. So to ensure of a vote and all that sort of thing. So,
Yeah. Well, I have a video that I want to show you. It's an advertisement. I've had it for a little while. I've been waiting until the next time you were on the show. And I don't have an understanding that much of the background of what this referendum. There was a referendum, a voice referendum earlier this month in Australia. It was like vote yes to change the constitution or vote no not to, or something like that.
Correct.
And if I'm assessing this correctly, would a yes vote be the woke vote?
Absolutely, 100% yes.
Okay, I thought so. All right, so this advertisement, which I maybe you've heard, is from Berlin Creative, Richard Burney and John Linton. They were not happy with the way this issue was being discussed before the vote. They wanted to inject some humor into it, and so they put together this 2.5-minute ad that they hoped would spur many of the older people over there to vote yes, because most of them were voting no on it. And I want to show it to you. Have you seen this?
I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. I'm not sure what you're talking about. So probably no.
7 people.
I don't. I really. Yeah. No. Is this on telly?
I don't know. I saw it in some article, and I ripped it off of that article.
So it's a comedy thing. It's probably not. All right.
All right. Make sure you got some volume up here. Yeah. After watching the ad, I was like, I think these are the woke people over there.
Not recognizing the dude, so probably no.
27 people over the age of 50 are going to vote no.
27%.
27 people. No. 3 out of 4 people over the age of 50 are voting no. That could be our parents, our aunties, our uncles. How do we stop them? Well...
So I said, Mum, okay, I'll change it.
I should pause that. They put a graphic up on screen right there with the title of the advertisement, and it's called Groom a Boomer. It's a Groom a Boomer campaign. Take it back a second there. Which, when they showed this woman here on screen, I'm like, oh, there's a boomer, but apparently she's not a boomer.
So I said, Mum,
they
okay,
should get this right.
change it. I'll change your iPad back from Danish to English if you read this little booklet on The Voice.
Your uncle, your dad, your mum. You might be living in a house full of no's, living in a house of closet home no's.
If you've got parents voting no, go to their house, find this, get rid of it. Give it back to them. But it's the only chance to actually have a real conversation with them.
So we got talking.
He was holding a remote. Take the remote away from your parents who just want to watch a little. They just want to torture the older people. Back a little bit here.
Real conversation with them.
So we got talking. I said, it's just really simple. You just say yes. About 122 years ago, a whole stack of these white guys decided to make this thing called the Constitution. They forgot to include First Nations and women, they were the only ones who could vote. So, yeah, we need to amend it.
If we vote yes, amazing things could happen. Kathy Freeman, out of retirement, wins 10 more gold. Ernie Dingo, out of retirement, 10 more seasons to get away.
Let's recognise the First Nations and let them have a bit of a chat, a bit of a committee called The Voice to our politicians.
If nothing else works, just try crying, try begging.
Kill 'em.
Okay?
Just kill
Say,
'em.
hey mum, hey dad, do you actually love me? Because it's not looking like you love me right now. Okay? Buy your dad a drone. Okay? Don't hand it over until after they've voted, right? But if they're good, they can get a drone. Give mum, I don't know, a movie. They like gold class, don't they? Give them a gold class ticket and say, hey, you can see Barbie this time. We're going to take you to see Barbie. I'm sorry you didn't like the Bond movie. It's Barbie time.
If we vote yes, they get to tell their story, instead of us doing it. You ever had your mum tell one of your jokes?
Hey, give your dad a handshake. He loves it. Salute him.
Hand job.
Oh, do dads love a salute? Give the mum a hug and then salute the father. Oh, he'll be voting yes in no time.
Groom a boomer. There it is. I'd be willing to bet that none of the people, those two main guys in that commercial, I think they're the ones who created it, have a good relationship with their parents.
Yeah, maybe it's just the general irony. See, I'm not a very good social litmus test because I don't live in the city for a start, so it would be vastly different. And I don't really go out much, so I'm not observing the sort of the generalness of what's going on in the hub. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, obviously that's total satire, and there's probably a lot more wokeness in the cities than I'm aware of.
Do you think, from what you are aware of, that it's a normal thing over there that maybe people who lean left, the progressive side, that they just think their parents are stupid jokes? I mean, those weren't even good. They weren't even giving people good ideas. Like, you can make it funny for one thing, but at least give people good ideas. He's saying, give your dad a drone. Older people don't know what the F a drone is. Like, they don't want to mess with that. They don't want to go see Barbie. So, you're make your jokes over actually trying to groom a boomer. If you're going to groom an effing boomer, I feel like they should give better examples.
It's total satire, isn't it? Like the whole
No,
thing.
it is. But the guys who
Right.
created it, they genuinely were hoping that it would help people convince their parents to vote no. That's what they
vote
said
no.
anyway.
Okay, yeah, it was a little bit confusing. I'd probably have to watch it again
to vote
really
yes.
fully-
Excuse me. To vote
Okay.
yes. Yeah, they wanted to
Okay.
change it because they wanted to give a voice to the underrepresented, is what I gathered from it.
I think that even that was satire, though. I don't think they was. I think they were being satirical about how you get a boomer to vote yes, but they were saying this is the stupidity of it. I don't know. I
Maybe.
think the whole thing was satire. I don't know.
And I think maybe that's where they
have to watch
missed
it
the
again.
mark on it a little bit, because there were some funny moments in there. But in the articles, like, they were interviewed after making it because it got a little bit of attention, and their objective was to tell people how they could convince their parents to vote yes, because they wanted to push this referendum.
And they were
through.
serious about that, were
Yeah, they were
Right,
serious. I
okay.
mean, that's what they were in the article anyway. Like that moment when the woman was like, there are these white people, and they forgot about the women. And how did they describe it? What are they talking about with the indigenous group over there?
With the Aboriginals.
Or yes, excuse me.
Well, the general narrative of the history is, basically white people came and just completely were totally brutal and everything. I mean,
It's like y'all's
I'm not-
Native Americans.
This is just a narrative.
Yeah,
Yeah, very
yeah.
similar. Very, very similar.
Okay, I got it.
But there's a lot of questionable things about the actual history that we were indoctrinated with, which is coming out now. I just did a episode on it fairly recently.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of history that is definitely not taught in schools.
No, they teach
As we
everything in
know.
schools. The
I
schools
know, I
teach
want to
you
state in the
everything.
bleeding obvious.
Yeah, nothing was untrue in school.
But honestly, I didn't know much about. I hadn't questioned much about it myself of Australian history. It's not a place where I spent much time. I didn't really do much history at school. I did ancient history rather than more modern history. So I really didn't know a whole lot. It's very embarrassing to say, but I just hadn't looked into it a whole lot. So I just kind of hadn't questioned it myself, really.
Yeah.
Hadn't looked into it. And then, a few things just coming up, particularly with since the referendum. People are starting to realise that even our Australian history has been quite coloured, let's say.
I think.
Oh,
that
that wasn't a great choice of words.
Look at you
That was
feeding that.
totally-
You sound like someone who's voting no on that referendum style, like one of those racist.
I absolutely didn't mean it. It's just the first word that came to mind. Let's say it's been.
It's a referendum of color. Okay, you need to say it correctly.
The narrative of history has definitely been coloured in.
Hotep Jesus, I think, is who. Have you heard of that guy?
I have, yeah.
He was apparently on Joe Rogan recently. I didn't see this. I heard it secondhand, so I might be getting it a little bit wrong. But he was apparently talking about how the first king or leader in Hawaii was black. Like after, when we came over here and took the country, that there was a black leader ruling Hawaii, and kind of bust up that narrative there. And then like, the whole family, you can see them. I can't remember the name off the top of my hand, but it's, if you look at them, it's a black family. They might have some sort of like Kamala Harris like background. But if someone were to be like, they're not actually black because they're from this and this one, which that's the reason they look the way that they do, then you have to invalidate Kamala Harris being black because she's not an African American technically. So I don't. People can't make that argument. But yeah, the point is the history. You're right. It's just I've gotten to the point where it's like probably almost everything. It's going to be a grain of truth there. Is going to be mostly exaggerated at the least, just completely made up by the people who won control of writing it, most likely. And if you look at right now, the January 6th thing, or any of the stuff that Trump said are the most obvious examples. But 50, 100 years from now, there's going to be children in public schools, if they still exist, being told about the insurrection of 2021, Jan 6, that changed everything about election security. And if the story that they want to push into the books wins, they'll be told that this was just this horrible 9/11 like moment, and it was so bad that the only thing that came close to as bad as January 6th was the Hamas attack on Israel. Not quite a January 6th moment.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, that's what all this footage and everything is about, and all this ridiculousness. It's not really meant to make sense now. They're building a scrapbook. That's all they care about, is getting the footage, getting the things on video or whatever, recording history along their narrative, so that, because it doesn't matter now.
That's a good point.
Who cares?
Right.
It's for the generations of the future, so that they can look back and see the ridiculous thing that they've built. It's like a Dr. Seuss book as opposed to an encyclopedia.
And it makes me think that the people who told us our history were probably also lying for the most part. If that's the one that's going to win.
Everybody lies.
It's just
Hong Kong.
I think a lot of people are kind of waking up to just it's a fabricated, almost a simulation there, but just construction of the world we operate in. And it doesn't mean that all the stuff they told us was bad. I know there's purposes to some of the narratives, but it'll be. I wish I could go into the future 100 years and just read a history book and then come back and tell everybody what. That'd be a great show. I'm back from the future. Here's the history book.
There's an idea. It could be a blockbuster.
Yeah.
Apparently Trump did it. So.
Right.
No, it was Byron.
Future.
What's his son's name? Byron? No,
Baron time travel. Yeah.
He's a time traveler.
Is he really? Is there like a weird thing?
I don't know.
That?
Q probably made that one up. I don't know.
I mean,
apparently there was some book written in the late 1800s that had some very, very, very familiar resemblance to Baron.
Baron Trump.
It went even further than that too. It was like the whole story.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's an old Western from like 1950. I think it's an episode of Gunsmoke, if I recall correctly, where this swindler comes into town and he's scaring everybody into thinking that this guy named Trump is about to come in and take over everything, and he's going to kick out all the immigrants, like almost build a wall, just crazy stuff. He's like, Trump is coming, and everybody's getting thrown in jail. Beware, Trump is coming. It's like, holy cow, it's awesome.
Wow, isn't it amazing how those things sort of come out of the woodwork, you know? And I mean, The Simpsons is one thing, but then to go back to the 50s and stuff, it's just, wow.
I wonder if any of it had to do with his family, because his uncle was well known. His uncle worked with the British intelligence developing weapons in World War II, and his uncle was the one who was given Tesla's papers right after Tesla died by the FBI.
He was one of that party that entered the building and took the trunks.
Yeah, absolutely. He got in there when the body was still warm.
Was it Alan Trump?
No, it was. No, he's John Trump. I can't remember his name. Slips my mind. But he was 10 years later. He was credited in a newspaper. I found all these old archives of him, of his uncle, and he was given credit for inventing the X-ray machine, which Tesla was working on, all that stuff before he died. And he was given credit at one point in one 1953 article for curing cancer.
Sorry, what was the name of this person?
This is Trump's uncle. I can't remember. His uncle was
really.
So that's why I wonder if that episode,
I didn't know that.
because he was a prominent figure. I wonder if that is one of the reasons they had him in there. So another Australia thing, and this one's a little stupid, but
Can I just pause for a sec? I just
Please
wanted to acknowledge. So Tim, yeah, I've been reading your comments. So I agree with everything, and yes, chaps are all definitely assless. By the way, Binkley, just so that you know.
I know, but I just like to say assless.
Oh, I do too. That's why I just said it.
Okay. Oh, King, I can't pronounce that well, but he was not black officially. You think Hotep
Hammer,
Jesus
hammer.
is
Whoa.
an Afrocentrist type? Maybe. Yeah. So is he?
Hammer, hammer, ha.
When you say he's not black, would he be like Kamala Harris is not African American, but she is classified as being black the way it's classified here? Would that King be classified as being being black or a person of color? And
Well, non-white,
day?
perhaps.
I think Sir Tim might be from Hawaii, if I'm correct. Am I correct on
Well,
that, or
just
am I
imagine if Kamala was a descendant of that king. It would be Kamala, Kama.
Yes.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
You're almost like doing a rap every time you say your name.
And if you do that and you have a black vice president, you're rapping. It's just a recipe for racism accusations. So
Yes. Let's not upset the algorithm here.
I want you to tell me if any of this is true. These stories
I'm a fact
about,
checker all of a sudden. Okay.
This one I think you
do my best.
probably know. These stories about Australia pop up in my news feed. I guess I like to look at Daily Mail because I have a bunch of crazy stories. That are
Oh, okay. Well, I can fact check that. It's all bullshit. Let's go home.
Yes. Well, the story is that, and this could be valuable information for you. It's a warning to people in Australia that next Tuesday on Halloween to make sure that you're not driving, you're not behind the wheel of your car wearing your Halloween costume. Don't drive to a party with a Halloween costume on, because you could very well, in the worst case scenario, get hit with up to $2,000 worth of fines because of the rules you're violating. And
okay.
they said that, here's what they said. This is an organization.
Can't wait to hear about this one.
BS organization. It says the International Drivers Association. Are you familiar with that?
International Drivers, ADA. No. It doesn't mean that they don't exist, but I'm not familiar with it.
One of the representatives who was speaking to the Daily
IDA.
Mail there, yeah, they said
The
that
anagram, right?
wearing large or ill-fitting costumes, full face mask, or even heavy makeup would interfere with the driver's ability to meet they say that there's these rules where you have to have proper control of the vehicle at all times, which I think is a pretty basic rule. And you have to have an uninterrupted view, which rain could affect that.
So
and
no big, long, warty noses.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't. You don't want to block it with your big nose. And a driver must not drive the vehicle unless he's got a clear view of the road, the traffic ahead, behind each side of the driver on left and right. That's what he says the law says in Australia. It
Well,
seems
that's no
very
fun.
general and generic to me.
It's like logic. They're just reminding us to think with common sense. Duh.
I guess it's a little bit of I was trying to wrap my head around why are they picking out these very generic laws and trying to convince Australians not to drive their car with their Halloween costumes on. Is there something going on over there with
It is Halloween. You will not have fun. Jeez. I don't know. This is just so stupid. I mean, it's just taking the nanny state to another level, isn't it?
really is. Yeah.
I mean, if you get in the car and you can't really see what you're doing, I would hope that if you're smart enough to get into a car and drive one, that you're probably smart enough to remove the obscurity until you get to your destination, not just hope for the best.
Right.
I mean,
I'm sure you could drive with a COVID mask on over there, right?
well, there you go. There's that. But, I suppose if you're dressed as a ghost or something, you might wrap your ectoplasm around the gear stick and
That's true.
you might
That's
take
true.
off somewhere that you don't want to be.
What if you're an actual clown, though? What if that's your day job?
Oh, like the politicians, they have drivers.
Oh, right. So you're right. So you can't.
The
drive
drivers are
anymore.
dressed as politicians.
Of course. It would be interesting though if this were legitimate, if they had to be able to recognize that you're in a costume, or if they pulled you over and they said, what are you dressed now as for Halloween this year? And the person's like, oh, I'm dressed as my cousin Jeffrey, and he just got plain clothes on, and he's like, get out of the car right now with your hands up. no costumes while behind the wheel. They say in Queensland, a motorist could be hit with a $619 fine for driving without due care and attention. That was what stood out to me. Is that like a real law, you think? Like, without due care and attention seems like a wide open ability to just pull anybody over for anything.
Bloody hell. It's going to be really fun when they get the chips into everyone's head, aren't they? Because it's going to be like, oh, you had a thought, you were distracted, pull over.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I mean, that's going to be all driverless cars, I guess. But yeah, I mean, this is just getting ridiculous, isn't it? It's sort of thought police. I think, none of it's really legit. It's just all silly headlines and things
I think it's silly
to
too.
be in the ether of our thinking, to remind us reminding us that
Yeah.
we're watching, everything you do,
Yep.
it's all going to be under scrutiny. Remember that.
No driving with blackface on, but text all you want while you're behind the wheel. That's fine, as long as you're not wearing a costume. Text all you want.
Yes, and none of this applies to Aboriginals, by the way.
Yeah, they get, even though they did not get the amendment for the Constitution.
Oh, let me tell you this. So after the vote was officially no, which was a few minutes after the closing of the polls, because they already knew what was going to happen. So I don't know if it was just Queensland, but this was the story. Queensland, all government employees, particularly Indigenous, were all allowed to have a week off with pay to mourn.
Yeah. Wow.
I know. That's what I did. That's what I said.
To mourn what happened when you guys took over the country, the white people?
No, to mourn the outcome of the referendum vote.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
That's
it's even
crazy.
worse. Because they put so much money. It's probably because they're mourning about the money. But yeah, no, that was just ridiculous. It's like, well, okay, can we mourn about the fact that we were all severely put under scrutiny through COVID and like had our heads smashed against pavements and things? Do we get a week off to
No.
mourn for all that? No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You lose
Crazy.
your job, though, if you don't get the shot. There was a story on CNN earlier this week that was like, what was it? It was the COVID vaccine was shown in the study to slightly increase the risk of stroke in children. And it's like, well, you guys are about 3 years behind on reporting some of the problems. And they're now allowing some people to sue for it. Sir Tim, was that an AI episode that I'm thinking about? It might have been. That thought came to my head just because of the subject matter, so I didn't look deep into it. I probably should have refrained. But if that was AI, that's an interesting. Who knows what is AI right now? And
Yeah, I think a lot more than we would imagine.
yeah, totally. Speaking of propaganda, and you mentioned this a moment ago, witnessing this just display of propaganda going on with Israel and Hamas. Counter that to the Ukraine war. No video footage, TikTok videos, or anything over there. But we have nothing but live or shortly after the fact footage, sometimes live footage of this Hamas Ukraine, not Ukraine. Now I'm getting them all confused. Hamas Israel thing. And I saw a story
It's
today.
a bit like eeny, meeny, miny, mo, really.
It's
isn't
just,
it?
I can't even take it anymore because it's competing stories about dead babies and, well, you cut the heads off the dead babies and, well, we killed the dead babies humanely. And it's like, okay, can we get enough of the dead baby propaganda? And this story I saw yesterday was so stupid. I mean, reading the headline that is pure propaganda. I'm going to get the actual pictures up because it is worth it to see how attractive the women are.
Oh, they're always using the really pretty ones, aren't they? I mean, it's just, yeah, always.
The headline is
Naturally.
Totally fearless all-female Israeli lionesses squad of 13 kill 100 Hamas terrorists in 14-hour gunfight to save base and families.
Oh, wow. That says something,
There's a
doesn't it?
0% chance that's true.
Yeah. Yep.
But let's assume it was for a second.
Sexy
before-
super soldiers.
Yeah, and they are. Some of them they look super hot. They could be doing selfie videos like Kylie Jenner all the time and making millions instead of fighting in this war.
Selfie from Iran. Selfie from the Gaza.
Right. Yeah, like a dead body. if this were true, why would they make an all-female squad? Why would they not mix in a few dudes with that squad? That would seem a bit dangerous.
Well, you said it to start with, wasn't it? In propaganda. I mean, like, it's ridiculous. It's like the chick on the back. Well, it was actually you, I think, that showed it to me last show that we did together, and I hadn't seen it before. It was that chick that was being taken away on the truck, and they hadn't blurred it out at that stage.
Oh,
and
right.
like it was just a quick shot in amongst some other things that you were showing me, and I said to you, "Can you go back to that?" And you could. It was a little bit hard, so we didn't. But it was like the very first moment I saw it. My immediate thing was, that's a silicon dummy, because it was just too contorted in a weird way, and it's like even if you had
strange.
broken legs and things, it just looked too round
Right.
and rubber, and I mean, it just was obvious, really. I thought.
Yeah, and they just raced past that every time they talk about. The first time I saw that, my first thought was, I don't know what that is, and yet everybody is talking definitively. Like, not only do they know what it is, they know exactly who it is, what the tattoo is, and they have contact information for the person's mother. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Who has got an incredibly large Adam's apple, by the way, the person's mother.
You did show me that, and that was unbestakeable. You're right about that.
Mhm.
So.
Somebody said, yeah, you could crack a coconut on that. That was Ando, I think. Shout out.
Let me show you here. So there's one of the chicks right there.
Might
This
have been
is,
OG.
she's
Yeah,
pretty-
they're all pretty, and you know, they've all got nice hair. And
This woman weighs 97 pounds right here. Okay. That bag she's carrying probably weighs more than her, and she's part of the 12-person unit that eliminated about 100 Hamas terrorists. When you get down to the article, these stories always reveal the truth buried deep inside. I didn't mean that to sound that way.
okay, no, I get it.
Female in there, but
You got to look between the lines, yeah.
absolutely. So it was a 14-hour gunfight, they say, and they start out by talking about how this commander. She told her unit when they encountered these Hamas terrorists that they need to stay alert as they get closer and closer to where they've infiltrated and they have confronted with these heavily armed terrorists. And she said to her 12 troops, "We're going to go out and we're going to eliminate terrorists." Infiltration into Israel is happening and it's spreading. So she's like a leader here with this speech. And she said, we might cross paths, but we have a strong squad. And so they got to this military base that Hamas had raided. And her little 12-strong army taking on, of course, it says 50 heavily armed terrorists here. They said 50 heavily armed terrorists charged towards them, towards these 12 women. And they came face to face with one male terrorist and shot him at close range. They're going individually through some of these stories here. And then an officer from another unit arrived and proposed an attack on the building. So I like how they say an officer from another unit arrived, but they don't say the sex of that officer or describe the female attributes of that one. Long story short, they fought off these guys, or they fired at these guys, allegedly, for a couple of hours. And then about 2 hours in, I think, the Navy Special Forces unit from the Israel Army, they showed up, and they then engaged the terrorists for the next 12 to 14 hours until they were able to control the base. So the story is actually some chicks showed up at the beginning of this fight, and then the Special Forces came in and killed all the people. But the headline is all these hot chicks. You know what this is? They want to recruit people into the military, not only over there, but over here.
Yeah. Look, beyond the very first few words, I just tune out, really, because it's just obviously. I mean, if people can't see this by now, really, they're not going to send a bunch of pretty ladies into heavily armed, dangerous territories. They're just not. Not 13
Not
women.
Pretty ladies, no. And you get some,
Well,
some blinkers in there.
whatever
It's
ladies.
listen-
I mean, even the lady boys, but they're just not that
Look-
many
look at
all at
this
once
picture.
on their own.
Look at that. Gal Gadot, yeah, she could play here. And you got Brie Larson might be able to play one of these characters. They probably will make a movie out of this article. You're probably right.
So, well, that is true. They're writing the history. They're sort of setting up Hollywood for the next few years, I suppose. They're going to make a whole bunch of new movies because they've just been, rinsing out the old things and doing remakes and
rebooted it,
stuff.
yeah,
So
so now
they
they
needed
do-
some new juicy content, really.
Totally. Zelensky can play himself. Look at this chick in the front here.
plays
These 12 chicks who are all standing carrying, well, you know what that looks like to me? That looks
Oh,
like a
happy.
Halloween decoration, but it's a body, allegedly. And this chick in the front is just smoking hot, and she's just smiling like she's about to do a TikTok video.
Yeah. They're about to break out into a little dance, I think. That's
And
crazy.
there's the one guy in there who I don't know what that guy's doing.
Right at the back.
Yeah, so there they are eating sandwiches after killing all those people.
Nothing like a sandwich after a good old kill. Yeah.
How is it that none of these girls are ugly in this?
Yeah. And they probably not one of them broke a nail, I bet.
Is it not a bit obnoxious that I mean, the implication is that these are real bodies. They're just pumping these bodies up in the air and cheering and celebrating like like they're taking shots at a club.
These women are ruthless, cold killers.
This
You don't
is
want to get into a
stupid.
war with these women.
Oh, look at that bitch right there.
Ah, she's doing blackface. So how come they're
She's
allowed?
doing blackface. What a bitch. Cancel her. There they are, and there.
Gotta cancel that whole army.
None of these bitches fought in this war. There is a requirement over there for women to fight or to be enlisted. I don't know if they fight, but I think
I
it's
was going to say that, to be fair, it is a culture where they are brought up to expect to be drafted. I don't know how their thing works. I think it's just built into their culture. But
it's
this is
compulsory
just
military
propaganda.
service, yeah, for all
Yeah,
able-bodied female residents.
Yep.
And
Which,
there's like 50,000 of
there
them.
are sections of that kind of life that I don't disagree with, in the sense of only because I've known people who've been into the forces, and it really has actually done a good thing for their lives. Like, I'm not saying all of them, but just the ones that didn't actually go to war. So that's the whole, it gives them discipline and it gives them
Self-defense,
self-respect and self-defense as well. So as opposed to people who sort of don't have any routine or any structure or anything like that, who are just like, it's not really doing much. So in
I
that
think
sense,
very useful.
it's
in
not
that
too bad,
sense.
but I don't agree with any of the rest of it.
It's when they're like, okay, now go stand in a war zone and pretend to be pumping a dead body up and down with pearly, perfect white teeth, like you just killed the guy. Maybe some of them are badasses, but I don't buy that story at all. But there will be a movie made about it, and I think what people have to look out for over here is because our military recruiting is at an all-time low, especially the Army. And if we're going to be going to World War III, they're going to be needing to bring people in. And shit like this is how you can get some younger women who have bought into this narrative and feel inspired by chicks like this to get them into making a decision to go do whatever they're going to have them do in this War of the Worlds #3. And I would say don't do it. It's just
I
not,
see maybe Jennifer Aniston is going to play that other chick that was just on the screen there. Oh, she might be the commander. Look,
she's gonna be, yeah.
keep thinking, they keep saying things like, why are we even having these stupid combat wars apart from the obvious of the business people making lots of money in the metal industry, et cetera, and the guns and the arms industry? But we shouldn't even be having these kind of wars anymore. It can all be done with cyber. So why they even got these boots on the ground? Or, God help us, biological or whatever. But, I'm not encouraging it. But it sort of seems a bit weird that we're sort of so advanced with technology now, and yet we're still all this arm-to-arm combat. It's
Like
doesn't
World
make a
War
lot of
I
sense.
type stuff almost.
Yeah. Or
They do
even
have the
before.
drone aspect of it in Ukraine, at least they say anyway. They don't even talk about the cyber attacks that go on. Every single day around the world, there's crippling cyber attacks that happen to casinos, to major businesses. A lot of times it's these, teenagers or people in their 20s who a couple weeks ago, they held all of the MGM casinos hostage for a couple of weeks, and they demanded ransom, and they didn't get it from the MGM ones. They cost them about $100 million because they shut down all the stuff. Nobody could get in their hotel rooms. There was lines of people who just wanted to go waste all their money and bang hookers who could not even get into their room to shower first. And the other casino, I can't remember what the other one was. One of the non-MGM ones did pay like a $5 million ransom. So these people are getting ransoms all over the world. And it's just like, I need to get into that business.
Yeah, it's almost like just another leg of money laundering, I suppose. It's like, oh, there's another good way to do it.
I
Yeah, I just everything's got an ulterior motive as far as I'm concerned that we see on the
Oh
stage.
God, yeah. It's like,
I
are
mean,
you saying that nothing is as it appears to be?
I stated the obvious again. I'm just saying that in case there's a couple of normies that have just converted
All right.
listening.
So you brought some propaganda stuff, some historical propaganda stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, a little bit of sort of propaganda. So I've got a bunch of these old newspapers and things that I'm not really quite sure how I acquired, but there's a whole box of them out there, and I was looking through a few of them, and it's just really interesting. This particular one, right? Okay, yeah, it's up there. This particular magazine is a Australian Pix. It's called PIX. It's no longer in print, obviously, but this is from April 1951.
How many terrorists did she kill?
Yeah, exactly. Where's her gun? Yeah, so that's just the cover I thought I'd show you. I haven't put the whole thing down, and these are just photos that I've sort of taken off my phone because it was a bit big to scan, so hopefully they'll work out. Am I in control here? I am. I
Yes,
think.
you
Yes.
are.
Okay, cool.
One thing real quick, Denver Attaway, yeah, I do remember the shooting for the Las Vegas shooting. That story, the MGM stuff, I requested the hackers go in and find all of the data that revealed anything we could learn about the Las Vegas shooter. Because the Las Vegas shooting, that hotel was one of the ones that these hackers allegedly took control of. So I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Just
Oh,
wanted to
right.
respond to that real
Okay.
quick. Yeah, so.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, these are cool images here.
Good to get
I
to
like
the
these.
comments. Appreciate you guys. And there's a couple of commenters on YouTube too.
Oh, yeah. So,
I haven't got.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
as
I can't read
Gerald
that.
Salente says, when all else fails, they tell yeah, he's right about that. So,
Yeah. Definitely.
sorry, I totally derailed you there. That's my fault. I apologize.
Not a problem, mate. It's your show.
No, but like this stuff is interesting to me. I just
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of interesting to see sort of where, like, we're talking 1951, so where sort of the thinking was at there. This was, we're not going to read the whole thing or anything, but this was a family that had 16 children. And I just thought this is sort of like the beginning, I thought, of the feminism idea, because even though it's sort of like, well, fair enough, 16 kids, you've got to get a bit of help. But can you see my cursor? No, you can't.
Yeah, I can see it.
Oh, you can? Yeah, so see here, it's like the lady sitting down with her feet up reading the paper while dad's there doing the sewing and doing the hair cutting. And but the twin is four
So
sets
the dad's
of
doing
twins.
a lot of the typical stuff you would see the mom do.
It's just introducing, I don't think it's sort of like dad does everything while mum reads the paper. I think it's just introducing the idea of mum shouldn't have to do everything, dad should get more involved. It's just the beginning of that sort of evolution of thinking. Because back then it was very, dad goes out to work and mum stays home and looks after the house sort of thing. So that was just sort of that. I thought it was interesting. This is the queue for the bathroom.
Oh my goodness! It's all 16 of their kids.
I did wonder whether this was sort of a little bit of a made-up family. I don't know.
They all have the same haircut.
Are we able to zoom in? Yes, we can. Okay,
What
cool.
newspaper is this from?
It's called Pix. P-I-X. I don't believe it still. But listen to this. Australian record for big families was held by Mrs. Annie Brown of North Fremantle, it's in Western Australia, who died 4 years ago after having born 29 children.
Oh my gosh.
No wonder she didn't survive. Nearest to this figure comes Aboriginal Mrs. Aggie Bull of Lake Tears Settlement in Victoria, who gave birth to her 23rd child 18 months ago at the age of 45. Holy dooly.
She gave birth to a 45-year-old?
Yeah, I know. It's funny the way that's worded. The US has several world record claimants, including 35-year-old Mrs. Belly of Oklahoma, who has given birth to 38 children, 11 whom are still living.
Oh my God. So I wonder how many she lost. I wonder
Yeah,
if she
it'd be an
lost most
interesting
at
history.
birth, or if they just kind of she
Yeah.
stopped paying attention after a little while.
Yeah, it's like, here you go. Play with the traffic, dear.
Are
By
these the
switching,
same father? Do you know?
these are all different women. No, I don't. different
Different women
countries.
fathered this
Yeah.
child.
Yes. But
This is progressive.
listen to this. By switching wives, fathers have been able to compile far more impressive totals. In 1948, a Colombian farmer married 4 times, fathered his 54th child in 1753. And a Russian was credited with 72 children by 2 wives. Holy dooly. I mean, what do you do with all those
No,
children?
that isn't like 72 children. I don't know what you do with them. You start I mean,
Imagine
you
the
could
uni
start an
fees.
entire football organization. You could have the executive, you could have the players, the administrator, the entire business. But 72 children, the fact that he did it with just 2 women, that's the impressive part to me.
Very impressive. You know, I salute you, sir.
I'm the youngest of 72. That's got to be
The middle children, they all had problems.
Right.
All
That was the
70
way,
of them.
end of the dinner table, a few miles away.
You'd have to send a telegram and wait a couple of days for the answer. So this is a kind of a weird little story on page 4. German will give his eye to United Nations.
What?
West Berliner Walter Demend, 45, is to give one of his eyes to a United Nations soldier blinded in Korea.
Oh my God.
His sacrifice will make it possible for the soldier's sight to be restored after modern surgery has transplanted the cornea from Demend's eye into the soldier's blind eye. Demand offered his eye to the American High Command in Germany, and the offer was accepted on behalf of the Medical Division of the United Nations Forces in Korea.
Right. That sounds like it
That's
didn't
weird.
work out for him. I mean, I hope
That's
that
weird.
he took his own eye, like he spooned his eyeball out, and he said, "I offer you my eye," and I hope the other guy could pop it in and it worked, but I doubt it did, which would probably make him go, "Shit."
Damn it.
You know?
Thought I was doing a good thing.
Because if you could just do that now, I think we would, or maybe not. Maybe that was like a cure for blindness, is that you could see again, but you just had to get somebody else's eyeball out of their head and into yours.
Yeah, and all they really needed was the cornea. So, he took his whole eye out and sent that off. They said, "Oh, thanks, we just needed the cornea bit, but what? Thanks."
I hope he checked in on. I hope this wasn't like a spur of the moment. I'm doing something for the troops. Give me
Yeah,
the
yeah.
spoon and whatever.
That was one hell of a virtue signal there, man.
He's
I
like,
salute you too.
Right. Yeah. It's a Ukraine colored eyeball that he has.
Yeah, blue and yellow. Yeah. That's just a picture of Vincent Price that I thought was interesting. If
Who's
anyone knows
Vincent
who he
Price?
is. Okay, next.
Who is he?
So Tim will know. He was a very,
of
very,
him.
very famous actor. I thought you would have heard of him actually.
Now, I've
Vincent Price.
heard of him, but
All right, you might know him from this. Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare album.
okay. Yeah.
He did
yeah.
the beginning bit of Black Widow.
Who's that next to him? That woman? Yeah.
Anyway, never mind. That's just for us.
That
older
woman looks
crew.
like she has something up her backside with that expression.
I think it's
Who-
Vincent Price's hand.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
It all
Yeah.
comes at a price. This was funny because this was a little page about just animals. I don't know. I guess it was around about the time when people were starting to see other animals from other countries and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
And they're
Is that a
saying
blind kangaroo trying to get the eyeball of the other one?
needed the cornea. It says here, kangaroos are not aggressive, but can administer stunning slashing blows with hind legs. If that's not aggressive, let me tell you, they
Just
are
deadly.
aggressive.
Yeah.
They actually drown people. They entice people and dogs into the water. If they're being chased by a dog, they'll go into the water and the dog will come in after them and then they'll drown the dog. They're renowned for it.
Messed up, man. There's this video from a few years ago. You might have seen it. This guy, a kangaroo, was like beating up his dog or something. So he hopped. I think he was on a motorcycle or something, and he hopped off and he ran over and he just started punching the kangaroo in the face, and he saved his dog.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
That's a classic example of exactly what I'm talking about.
And they look very muscular. These things.
I know they look. Yeah, they're more ripped than some of the blokes in the gym.
We should be sending kangaroos as the next weapons package to Ukraine.
That is a brilliant idea. Just send the kangaroos. I mean, they're just in plague proportions here, so let's just super them up a bit with a few chips.
Yeah. I mean, if 12 women can take out 100 terrorists, some kangaroos can do some damage.
Absolutely. And just, they only need grass, so it's very cheap. Send the troops off.
What is it?
Amazing.
Upside down?
They
world?
could
Is that
they
what
could
says?
they could do they could hide some heavy armor and bloody grenades and shit in their pouches.
They could, and entice some Russians into the water and drown them like dogs.
Wow, we're really onto something here. Hold that thought.
We just pumped up the war machine.
I want to buy shares.
And kangaroos.
This was really strange. So this was an article about upside down world, and this is where I'll go to the next bit so I can read it. Lots of people seem to get an upside down slant on almost everything. Anyway, basically, what happened was it was an experiment where there was a special pair of glasses made that made this gentleman, Mr. Snyder, what was he, Professor? Well, I can't find it there. Fred Snyder, a psychology student of sound vision, and his professor, Dr. Pronko, was doing a thesis, and so they did this experiment where they made this special pair of glasses, which turned everything upside down. So
Really?
it inverted what the person was seeing.
That's
And he
interesting.
had to wear them from the first moment he woke up in the morning until he turned the lights off at night and then take them off. And he had to do it for a month. And, well, it took a month for his brain to then see things normally. So the experiment was that we can retrain our brain to completely invert.
Oh my
Isn't that weird?
gosh. So he wore
yeah.
these for a month straight, you're saying, and after he took them off, it took him, or maybe I'm getting the timeline wrong, but it took him a long period of time to see the world the correct way again?
Yeah, same way the other end. So at first he couldn't walk. He was like he was drunk sort of
Oh
thing,
my
as
gosh,
you'd
that's
imagine.
wild.
And then he got to the point where he could type and he could write, even though he was actually writing upside down and back to front, I think it was.
Wow.
But
that's
he thought he was writing normally and stuff. So yeah, it was really weird. But what a strange
Who
experiment.
thinks of that experiment? Yeah.
I know.
You know?
And what did the CIA do with that afterwards,
I love how all these old-timey experiments all look like a Doc from Back to the Future. They have these big things on their head and eyes. And
Yeah, it looks really funky. I mean, the steampunk people would love a set of those. They're
That's
pretty
crazy.
funky looking. So yeah, that was kind of cool. Yeah. So Tim, I knew that you would know who Vincent Price was, and yes, the kangaroos are definitely buff.
The emus also. Send the emus too, he said.
The emus, yeah.
They have
Oh
combat
yeah,
experience.
they're heavy too. They'll kill you easy. You don't go with emus unless you know what you're doing. Yeah, this was interesting because we're currently having this, the meat wars sort of thing, like the eat the bugs type meat wars and our mRNA being syringed into eat meat and stuff. And apparently pork has had mRNA. Was it mRNA? Yeah.
mRNA,
Vaccines
yeah.
since 2018, so they say.
What has?
Pork.
They've been working on mRNA for quite some time now. I've read some papers on it. They I believe think that it has the potential to be some like super soldier creating life extension technology, but they just have a lot of experimentation to do, and they need an entire planet to experiment on. And so I think I think they hope that it is something.
Yeah. Do you need to I don't want to go on too long.
No,
You
I
just
like
tell
this
me.
stuff. Keep going.
Okay, all right. I don't want to take over your shows.
No, I love this stuff. Like I
Okay,
love
cool.
old propaganda. Like I find it fascinating.
Oh, I do too. I love it's just it's great looking through these old mags. So these are women that were marching through the streets in protest against the government controlling the meat trade.
Does that say heat over meat? Is that what that
Heat
says?
over meat, yes. So heat as in everyone's getting hot under the collar.
No, yeah,
Heat.
yeah.
They're getting mad. Yeah.
Heat over meat.
Yeah. It's very clever. They were quite clever back then. They blame control for the small ration of 8 pence worth of meat a week for each person. Remember, this is post-war. Housewives organised a petition of protest for presentation to Parliament. They demanded a return to private enterprise. And there's a picture of a nice old car there. It looks like I don't know what it is. I'm not even going to try to pretend that I know. Nice old car, probably a Ford.
Yeah, I love
And
cars like that.
we want meat free. We want meat free the trade. Let's have clean meat, free of politics, and British flags.
Yeah.
Ladies under umbrellas reading newspapers. That was kind of interesting because we're having a similar fight now.
Right.
Or
They
government
want
trying to
people to eat
control-
bugs, and yeah, it is interesting, the cycles of history. It is a lot of things that we might think at first are because maybe we haven't seen it in our lifetime actually happened like after the First World War, after the Second World War. We're just seeing it used like stuff done with modern technology. Like, do they have a eat bugs sign? Is that going to be the next one?
Yeah, I know. No, it wasn't quite in the mix at that point. But I'm sure they probably did through the war. It would have gone. It's probably a bit sensitive to bring it up again at that point, maybe.
Was that a self-driving car?
Who knows? But they had electric cars in the late 1800s.
And
so-
a lot of people don't realize that.
might
They
have been
already did this
mid-1800s.
battle in the late 1800s. You're exactly right. Over the gas-powered or the electric ones. We've already done this.
Yeah, they had some amazing technology that's been suppressed. Thanks a whole lot, Rockefeller and all you mob.
Yeah.
And natural medicine. Anyway, so this was really, this made me laugh, this one. This was like a scene of, what do you call it when they're being questioned, like after a crime?
Interrogation?
Thank you. So this is a silent interrogation. Reginald Theodore Cutshaw, who's on the right there if you're watching.
Guy with his hands up or the guy?
The guy on the left with the
Okay.
white shirt, I believe. Sorry, the guy on the right with the suit.
Okay.
Reginald Theodore Cutshaw, deaf-mute minister,
Oh my
questions
gosh.
deaf-mute Alan T. Jones, on the left in the white shirt, charged at Atlanta with murder.
All
This
right.
is Atlanta.
We have to stop for a second. I got to digest that.
Okay.
Did you say
the
deaf
second bit's
mute
just as difficult.
minister?
Okay, so we've got a deaf-mute minister who is questioning the deaf-mute accused. So with sign language,
That's
because he knows sign language, so they had to bring that guy in. Okay, so he's a deaf-mute questioning another deaf-mute about a murder. The detectives say that Jones confessed in sign language to the strangling of another deaf-mute.
Oh my god.
Sorry, that's not funny, but it's like this triangle of deaf-muteness.
I didn't know it was such a wild community, the deaf mute community.
It's big. It's a big
Is
industry.
it like a struggle for supremacy? I wonder.
Oh, I don't know. But I didn't really hear about it.
Are they fighting over a deaf mute chick or like Helen Keller or something?
They kept it very quiet.
That's
Anyway.
wild. That's like
It was kinda
really
wild.
crazy. I
Yeah.
never understood. I mean, some people don't believe Helen Keller did a lot of the things she did. I don't know. But
Yeah,
it
well, it's a
just-
bit like Jack the
it's
Ripper,
ex-
isn't it?
yeah. It's just like how? I'm sure humans are very adaptable and flexible to the circumstances that they have. But man, that's wild. And these other guys, are these deaf mutes or people who can hear and they're just looking at these deaf mutes talk going, I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
They're assuming that they're not like conspiring or something, I guess.
I guess. Yeah, they could be talking about how they're going to kill everybody else in the
Yeah.
room.
Okay, you ready, dude? You got your knife? Oh, hilarious. So that was kind of be fun. I mean, you'd have to have the girl from Epidema in the background on that one. So this was just like a continuation of the fear sort of thing. So that we're looking
Oh
at a
my
picture. It's a
goodness.
black and white picture, and there's a sign in the front that says "Danger, radioactive area." And there's a bunch of people in full 1951 anti-radioactive gear.
Black trash bags is what it looks like to me.
Again, they look kind of cool in a steampunk kind of way, but yeah, with like helmets and gas masks and the things that they carry, the oxygen, full trench coats, big boots, etc. So I don't know. To me, it was like it says Naval Radioactivity Monitoring Team makes tests of radioactivity after a supposed atom bomb explosion at Plymouth, England. The monitoring team with 1,400 soldiers and civil defence personnel partook in exercises. So that's all it is. It's just exercises. But
Oh, yes.
to me, it's sort of like they're just sort of, keeping the fear alive. You know what I mean? I mean, there was atomic talk going on, so I guess they got to be prepared. Well, they got to look to be prepared at least.
This
But,
is like a version of one of those live disaster trainings that we
Yes.
see here happen all the time. I wonder if they made the public aware that they were doing a training or if people thought it was real. Like I see down here at the bottom, it says atomic alert. That's kind of a weird thing to read in the newspaper, right? Like atomic alert, it might be a little late by the time it gets to you.
Yeah, it gets into the paper and onto
Yeah.
your door. Gets delivered by a little fried paper boy. Yeah, I know to me it's just keeping the fear, nice and active because we can't let that fade off. This is 1951 by this stage, so got to keep prodding,
I love how you have these guys in these hazmat like suits and the radioactive area danger, then the atomic alert, and then on the right side you have show dress, and it looks like it's featuring like a dress a woman wore from a stage show or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty crazy. Anyway, crazy times. Yeah, check this one
this
out.
is great. Here we go.
Okay, so we are looking at. We're going to have to be very careful with this description, as they were in their news. Let me read it. Sackcloth. Members of the Confraternity of Saccone, which is one of the big in charge families, Saccone family.
Of
So
Australia?
members of no,
Saccone
Italy, I believe. I think.
Oh, I have heard of them. Yeah.
I've got them on a list of one of the,
That's
all those
interesting.
very powerful families. Members of the Confraternity of Saccone wearing sackcloth garments take part in Lenten ceremony in Rome's Church of Saint Sabina. Confraternity is composed largely of members of Rome's leading families. Ceremony dates back to 16th century. Now, I'm going to let you describe this because it's your neck on the block, not mine.
These are Ku Klux Klan outfits, pointy hoods.
All right.
And, obviously, they got
Straight
the
to the
look from
point.
somewhere. Yeah.
I wasn't
Are
sure
they-
if
are
you
they-
were going to
No,
be
I
wanting
mean,
to
yeah,
say
they're
that.
totally the pointy white hats, and it looks like they're carrying some crosses. Is that a cross in
Yeah.
the background?
It certainly looks like one.
I love that they call them sackcloth. This isn't a Klan hood; it's a sackcloth.
Yes. Well, I guess this is sort of where they come from. They've got some sort of a beading, a bead, I guess rosary beady type thing with a cross belt. And they look just like the Ku Klux Klan. Yes, they do.
I bet they would support sending weapons packages over to Ukraine.
I bet they would. This is one of the first robots.
Yeah, these old timey inventions are just so ridiculous. Look at that.
It's like something from Doctor Who. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I'm sure I've seen it in an episode. Or Tin Man, a really low budget Wizard of Oz. This is a classic on page 33. Shout out Ashley. This is an ad for dental cream. Colinos.
This
dental
looks like
cream.
a crazy comic book. These are advertisements for products.
This is just like king's death means tooth sacrifice.
Oh my
So
goodness.
what happens here is when they're kings, this is all like what would you call them? Amazonian. Oh, hello. Amazonian.
Looks like a Spartan kind of with that thing on his head.
Yeah, it's hard to sort of pick.
This is one
Maybe
giant tooth
Mayan?
ad?
It is. When their kings died, Hawaiians, right, okay, sorry. When their kings died, Hawaiians used to knock out the incisor teeth of a maid as an expression of grief. So keep your smile beautiful with Colinos. Keeps your mouth sweet and fresh for hours. Just, ready for the big incisor knockoff.
What is he holding? Is he holding a woman? Is he about to hit the woman, or is that the dentist about to do dental work on that? Woman in the center?
That's the Hawaiian about to knock out the incisor tooth of that maid.
Now, what about the skull
She's
over
got
here?
nice fresh breath ready.
Yeah, she's ready. It says animal teeth grew in man, and then we see a skull with fangs.
That's from 1885, so it's probably true.
I feel like I would have to buy this product, or some god-awful things were going to happen to me.
I know it's a very strange way to advertise dental cream, isn't it? In 1885, archaeologists discovered a human skull 2,500 years old with a full set of animal's teeth fixed into the jaws. Colinus comes from the Greek word meaning disease preventer, antiseptic colinus, bubbles, fights tooth decay and bacteria. So that's excellent if you've got animal teeth.
And then you have right below that a face powder product with a woman powdering her face. It's a nice little
That's a little
juxtaposition.
prompt. That's a little prompt because you save money by buying this dental decay, so therefore you can afford to buy face powder.
Ah, right. You want to show your face off because you have such nice teeth.
Yeah, before it gets knocked out, preferably.
By a Spartan.
Here's the last bit anyway. They were just a little bit of fun.
I love this. It's a fact written across
Yeah.
the top.
This is their little fact-checky thing. But this was kind of cute here up in the corner. Equatorial Billiards at the La Belle Alliance Club in Pontianak, Dutch Borneo. This is old. Dutch Borneo, a white line running through the billiard room, across the floor, and over the green baize of the table marks the equator. So you can actually have a game of billiards from the south equator, the south hemisphere to the north hemisphere on that one table.
Wow, that's, temperatures must change drastically.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be funny if the ball just sort of stopped on the line.
It freezes
No
and
gravity there.
shatters.
Yeah. So that's kind of weird. Anyway.
Where did you
that was-
find all this stuff?
Well, this is only one magazine thingy paper out of I've got a box full of them. I think they might have come from old people that died off and maybe a few garage sales. I just pick things up along the way over the years, and now I've got a whole box full of them. And I went, oh, what am I going to do with all that?
What does this say? Yeah, this is very interesting here. What does this say here? Devil possessed?
Yes. That's kind of interesting. Let me just zoom in a little bit on that one. There we go. So this is the Sungmas, or holy men of Tibet. Shout out, Jin. Perform amazing feats of superhuman strength when in a trance. This Mongolian steel sword, a quarter of an inch thick, which is normally a strong man could not even bend, was twisted into several loops and bends by a Sungma with his naked hands. I guess while he was in
That's
a
the devil
trance.
possession.
Yeah.
There's this.
So there you go.
Used to be these guys. I can't remember what they were called, but they were like these evangelical Christian dudes who would go. There were these power lifter dudes who type of guys who can't even scratch their own back because they're just so jacked and they can't like walk around like this. And so they would do these things where they and they used to sell out too. We went to one of them. It was crazy. And they would get on stage and they would get a phone book out and they're in this church. And one of these just brutes would get up and he just ripped the phone book in half and he'd be like, "For Jesus!" And everybody like cheer, because his faith allowed him to turn into this wrecking ball who could just go around destroying people's phone books for no reason, really.
Yeah, right. Okay.
That's what it made me think of. No man had the strength to do that. Well, and it's a devil in that situation. And the one that I'm thinking about, it was a godly man trying to inspire. So something that made me think of when it comes to things that they've suppressed, there's a number of books about suppressed cures, health cures and whatnot. And there's this guy back, I think it was like the 1920s, named Royal Rife. You heard of Royal Rife?
I certainly have.
Yeah, so he claims, and there's some evidence to say that he did, and then of course he kind of got blackballed like all these guys do, that he cured the cancer of a number of patients with his Royal Rife machine. And the way that it works, from what I recall, is basically it focuses in on the cancer in the body and it vibrates it until it just explodes and eliminates the cancer. Uses a vibrational technology, right? Like frequencies.
Yeah, it has to be a certain frequency, and each particular condition has a different frequency. I've actually got a list of them.
Yeah. And
I think they use sympathetic frequencies as well.
It's so funny to me because like I've known about that for a while. Obviously you have too. And go back to like 2015 or something like that. I was researching something and I came across this, I think it was Arizona State University research study that was like a new research out of Arizona State University finds that using vibrations on the correct frequencies could potentially explode cancer cells and cure the patient. I'm like, oh my gosh, you discovered what Royal Rife had suppressed, right? And so fast forward to like a week and a half ago, I tried to find the article, but I can't remember exactly. I can't find it. Right. High frequency mechanical vibration can successfully, here it is, can successfully kill cancer, National Institute of Health. So we have suppressed something over 100 years ago, and now we're just getting back around to the official sources saying, okay, maybe we'll let people use some of this stuff now. And they're getting tons of funding money to research something that it appears has been proven for well over a century.
Yeah. Oh, they every time somebody comes up with something or discovers something, they're either bought off, threatened, or they are no more. 6 feet under. So that's gone on, through the centuries. That's gone on since I don't know about prior 1900. I guess it may have. But John D. Rockefeller and the
Oh, yeah.
Carnegies and all that bloody mob. Who's the other one? Rothschild. Yeah, I mean they just destroyed everything that they couldn't control. Same with the Tesla versus Edison.
Yeah. Yeah.
That old thing. And old Tesla, apparently, if that is true, just dying alone in his hotel room with 81 or whatever it was trunks that
With this doomsday
apparently
machine,
only. Oh yeah. They took down the Wycliffe Tower, didn't they?
Yeah.
They tore that down. So yes, free energy. Who knows? There's a lot of. I think when people start getting close now, what they do is they don't sort of so much try to suppress it. They just muddy the waters so much that you just have no idea what's real and what's not, because there's all these claims and then suddenly there's a debunk, and so everyone just puts it all in the same basket of. I mean, electricians can't even really tell you how electricity actually works. They know how to harness it and what to do with it, but they can't really explain it. That's
Yeah,
what
the
I
base
understand.
knowledge. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that we're so far removed from the origins of understanding of much of the things we could do that if it all broke down, we'd have to start over again, go back, trying to figure it all out. And
Which has happened various times, I believe.
right, yeah, I agree. I think it probably has as well. We've probably done this experiment and blown ourselves up repeatedly. Trying to
Or
get
been wiped
past-
out in some one way or another. Yeah.
And we might be approaching another point in time like that. In the
It
next,
is said to be.
distant future. The medicine stuff, you grow up learning to trust your doctor, listen to your doctor, and take your pills and everything. And you just, that's just what you're supposed to do. And when you first discover that there's all these alternative branches of medicine throughout history, that the focus and the resources and the money that went into the pharmaceutical angle could have been put into some of these things and developed some of these things that could have potentially just changed the entire way people take care of themselves. And obviously the income of the pharmaceutical companies as well. It's just mind expanding. This like, oh my gosh, this pharmaceutical angle is not the only way for medicine.
The last thing they want is healthy people. And I mean, like in China, they're your doctor has basically failed if you get sick. It's the opposite. So
right. I think Chris Rock used to make a lot of good jokes about that. Is that they're not going to give you the cure because the money is in keeping people sick. What's up, Big Perm?
Yeah. Oh,
This book,
Big Perm.
Body Electric. Have you ever heard of it? It's written by this guy named. What's his name?
Oh no, but I'm very interested. Hey, Perm,
Yeah.
I'm very interested to know about that.
Robert Becker was this doctor's name.
What was the body? What was it? The body
It's called
electric.
Body Electric. The
Yeah, that's it.
electromagnetism and the foundation of life. There was all these suppressed cures in this book. It was like, I think the book title was like 10 cures they suppress, and then the whole book went through
Right, yeah.
all of these. And this Body Electric guy was one of them. I think it was back in like the 60s or something like that. This doctor, he was a Navy doctor. In fact, at one point he almost won one of the highest prize. It may have been, I don't know if it's a Pulitzer. I don't know if is that a literary one. He won just one of the recognizable prizes that you get for doing amazing things. He was second. He didn't win it. He came in second. That's how high up and how much people valued his knowledge and his skills when he was in the military. But then he started fooling around with a little bit of stuff that they didn't really want him to. And he started experimenting with frogs. And he was trying to figure out how some animals or some species can regenerate limbs. And he wanted to apply that to people, to soldiers who would have their arms and legs blown off. And he kept experimenting. He would get frogs. He would chop frogs' legs off because frogs had some similar mechanisms in their bodies that were like us. If he could do it with frogs, he felt like he could apply the same methodology to people and it would work. And he reached a point where he couldn't go any further and he thought he had failed. And then some guy had gotten a bad motorcycle.
Legless frogs around.
Yeah, a bunch of legless frogs, can't hop anywhere.
Little tiny
It's just
wheelchairs.
dragging, yeah, right, yeah. So this guy gets in a bad motorcycle accident and comes in and he's going to do some sort of surgery on this guy. And the specifics of it are in that book, I'm sure. He sees something during this surgery that, makes a light bulb go off. And he does something that he had never done before that caused this guy who had just badly broken his body in this motorcycle accident to heal in a matter of weeks when in any other circumstance, had he not done that, it probably would have taken the guy 6 months to a year to get better. So it completely expedited the healing process, like regeneration. And so he took what he learned during that surgery and he cut some more frog legs off. And this time it worked. So he did what he did to that person, to the frogs, and he was regrowing these frog limbs, right? So he had the breakthrough that he needed, and now he just needed the funding. And right at that moment, that's when the military cut off his funding and eventually got rid of him and pushed him to the
Didn't cut
outskirts
off
of
his-
society. Yeah, didn't
cut
cut
off
off
his
his
limbs.
arms. Yeah, right.
His funding.
Right. He ended up
Yeah,
practicing
well.
medicine in Mexico because they
Yeah.
blackballed him. They took all his money away because they did not want him doing that. It was crazy.
Well, that was an excellent place for him to go because he could continue his experiments with the Mexican walking fish, which otherwise known as axolotls. I used to have them. We've had this conversation in the past, haven't we, Pinks? But like the axolotls, they can regrow legs and limbs and toes and all sorts of things because my pair, occasionally they weren't aggressive, but they were dumb as a brick, and not very good with their vision. So they couldn't really see till they were up close. So that, you'd go to feed them and the other one would get in the way and they'd sort of chomp the foot or something accidentally instead of the food.
And it just
So-
grow right back.
Oh,
No,
over
wait,
a
they
period
would-
of
they
time,
would
not immediately.
Wait, did you say they would eat their foot? Is that what you said?
I don't know if they actually ate them, but like chomped them
Ag-
off by accident. Usually, it wasn't like an aggression thing, but
God,
yeah.
that's
So,
embarrassing, isn't it? Oh shit! Am I chewing your arm? Sorry.
dang, did I do that again? It's not very impressive on a date, but so no wonder they stayed up the other end of the tank all the time, away
That's
from each
crazy.
other, just in case they lose another leg. But yeah, it's interesting that if they could harness that,
You would
We
think they would be
certainly-
able to, and
maybe
maybe
think
they
so
can.
by now. They probably can. I'm sure they can.
Here's a story
Underground
related-
somewhere, there's a whole bunch of
Probably
experiments going on with lots of frogs getting their limbs replaced
Yeah,
by
all
robotic.
those-
Or they're
those-
turning them gay or
all
something.
these
I don't know.
Teenage Mutant Ninja gay turtles now have been experimented on.
Super turtles. Oh,
They're
that's
right.
going to come true, isn't it? Ninja turtles.
That'd be
Look at that
crazy.
predictive programming.
And what's the rat's name that was their leader?
I have no idea. I never watched an episode.
They were led by a sensei rat who taught them everything they knew. Because I don't know if you know this, Del, but all rats have had martial arts training. They're all black belts. You don't want to fuck with rats in a fist fight.
Okay, I'll remember that. Thank you.
So check this out.
Thank you, Sir Tim, for that link.
Where is that? So there was a story about these scientists. They've allegedly brought a 46,000-year-old worm back to life that
Yeah.
had been frozen in a Siberian permafrost since the upper Paleolithic. Did I say that right? Maybe not. Period.
Sounds about
A
right.
long fucking time. Okay.
Yeah.
They were frozen. And they revived the worm, according to this study here. And as soon as they revived it, it
Uh-oh.
promptly started having babies.
Uh-oh.
Because it's like, yeah, it's
Keep it
asexual.
away from Wuhan, won't we? Just keep
It's-
it right away from Wuhan.
Right. That's the longest nesting period ever for
Wow.
babies. But you have organisms like this, and what is the name of that organism? Maybe you'll know it. There's one that they say that it just never dies. It lives forever. It's something that I think they probably found.
An
in the-
amoeba?
It's something like that. They found it, and if you look at it, it does look like a little character from Doctor Who.
Oh, starts with
TARDIS?
T.
I think it's like yeah.
Tardy. Jeez. I'll get it in a sec.
Those are the things that they have. That they are studying
Tim?
because they want to crack that code. I mean, there's no way they're not spending. I mean, they might not publicize and stuff, but there's no way. Like that
Tardigrade.
shark. Yes, tardigrade. That's what it is, and they're super tiny, super tiny.
And real cute.
Very, very cute. I have a whole bunch of pet tardigrades. They're going to outlive me. Everything's going to be burnt to the ground. Tardigrades are still going to be sitting over here in this tank.
I want a pet tardigrade. I want them to make big ones.
Oh, God.
Thanks, Pam.
That'd be great. There might be one. Wouldn't that be terrible? What Russia is probably going through Ukraine, destroying families with these massive mutant tardigrades that they're like riding, and you can't kill them.
They look like tanks, but they're not really.
They're killing all
They
those
made them look like tanks.
kangaroos. Have no chance, Stella, against these tardigrade tanks
That's right.
of the Russian army. But yeah, so they're studying the whole, freeze yourself and hope that you survive.
Sounds like an Eminem song. Freeze
Yeah,
yourself.
freeze yourself in the ice in the moment. Yeah. There's some wealthy people who they are going to put themselves on ice like shortly before they die, just in case.
Cryogenics. That's what Walt Disney did.
Is he in cryogenics still?
He is, apparently.
God, what if we melted him?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the technology was like back then. That could be rather tragic. I mean, you'd have to cook him straight away.
That would be the ultimate climate change activist protest. So just gluing your hand to Da
Melting
Vinci,
Disney.
you melt Walt Disney.
You melted Walt Disney, man.
Yeah. then you have a little bit of respect for what you did. Unless Walt Disney just wakes the fuck up and he's just like crazy
Turns
superhuman.
into Mickey Mouse or something. Yeah,
That would be kind of, he'd fit right in with the furry culture that
he
he
would.
he helped create. Supposedly you can boil them and kill them, says Wild Bill. So now we know, as you always have to have the kryptonite.
Tardigrades.
And
And
so
so about
when-
tardigrades.
We face the super army of Russian mutant tardigrades. We have to have boiling hot water in our super soaker guns that we're going to kill them with.
Oh, that should be easy. We'll just take water pistols and rely on climate boiling.
Right, yeah. So climate change is the ultimate enemy to the tardigrades.
Oh, we should make it our ally.
Okay, Stella, I want to show you something here. I'll show you this in the XR. If you have it, do you have a few more minutes or do you need to run?
Absolutely. No. My people will be fine without me for a few minutes.
I'm gonna play some clips in the XR of Bibi Netanyahu talking about Israel. You might have seen this going around, talking about Israel being just the perfect testing ground for the entire plan. I mean, he's talking about his people like they're they're in a lab and he's observing them.
Like tardigrades.
They're little tardigrades, and it's extraordinary. It's the whole reason I've never trusted Bibi Netanyahu. This clip. So I'm gonna play that for you.
I never
and-
trust anyone with the initials BB.
God, I don't either. And the way he talks to his voice sounds like it's like he lies about a lot of. I just don't trust the guy. I don't trust anybody who's in those positions though. So that's my thing, and a lot of our things, I think. And I think it's wise not to trust people who have done one thing consistently only, and that is lie to the people who they try. Yeah.
And particularly, if they've sort of I don't know, killed thousands of people, then yeah, I wouldn't
And
trust them.
forcefully given your country the jab. A lot of people forget that. Forcefully vaccinated
Mm-hmm.
your country. Stella, thank you for the cool stuff that you brought. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was awesome. And thank you guys for hanging out in the chats and for commenting. And we're going to continue on Rockfin and the DMBXR. If you want to get access to that, you can subscribe at rockfin.com/propaganda report. You can go to patreon.com/propaganda report. Subscribe there. If you want to help support the show in another way, you can go to whatever podcasting platform you listen on, whatever app you listen on, leave a 5-star review and a message that warms my heart, that warms Stella's heart. I know for me, sometimes you get overwhelmed and then you just read like a kind message and it's like you got the kind of fire back in you that the House of Representatives has in them to start funding foreign wars again once they get their new dick in charge. That's how I feel, except not for funding foreign wars, exposing their corruption. And we're going to go on. Thank you guys. We'll talk to you next time. Have a fantastic rest of your day.